The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. Trending Topics News Radio with Tom Simon and Fred Wallin. I'm Ralph Tycho of the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and we're going to start this evening with Tom Simon.
Thank you very much, Ralph. Good to talk with you. Good to talk with you, folks. Fred Wallin is in Westlake Village, California. I'm in Williston, North Dakota today, oil country up in the Balkans, and it is, it is a sign of the future, perhaps, as the economy here in Williston, North Dakota is going through the roof with the oil prices and so on. But Fred, what we want to talk about starting off, and I hope you had a good weekend, is the Paul Manafort trial. It is top of news as Rick Gates, Paul Manafort's longtime aide, has been on the stand. Have you been watching?
Well, you can't watch it, but I mean, I've been listening to everybody on CNN and Fox and MSNBC, and they're all basically saying the same thing, that Manafort is in trouble. And they mentioned that his wife walked out last week crying, and the 4 witnesses last week all testified that Manafort made all the final decisions, including where to hide the money. And today, of course, Gates saying basically the same thing.
Dateline, Alexandria, Virginia, the New York Times, Rick Gates, Paul Manafort's right-hand man for years, began testifying against his former boss today in federal court in Alexandria, Virginia. The Times goes on to say, folks, that he is considered the most important witness in Mr. Manafort's trial on tax and bank fraud charges. According to the New York Times, asked by prosecutors whether he was involved in any criminal activity with Mr. Manafort, Mr. Gates responded, yes. Well, that's not unexpected, right, Fred? I mean, you know that the prosecution has to, by tactic, get this out of the way right off the bat. They have to get out all the bad stuff about their witness so that the defense is not able to do it. And then they're going to say, okay, he did all this bad stuff, but he's still telling the truth about Paul Manafort, and therefore you should find Paul Manafort guilty. I do not believe that they're going to find these 6 men and 6 women on the jury are going to come to a unanimous decision of either guilty or not guilty. I believe we're going to have a hung jury. I've said that from the beginning. You say what?
No, O.J. Simpson was acquitted. Anything is possible. I've been a long time ago, a couple of times I was on a jury, and they ask you if you heard anything about this and all that. And if you want to get on, you say, no, I haven't heard anything about it, but you know that some of these people have. If they're Trump people, they're going to acquit. If they're not Trump people, they might convict. I would say the odds are pretty good of a hung jury. There's no shot at an acquittal. As bad as Trump has led this nation in the last 17 months, I still don't believe we're stupid enough to, all 12 of them, to say that Manafort's innocent. So I don't see an acquittal, but the odds are pretty good it's going to be a hung jury, which is going to waste some more time because you know he's guilty as hell. I hope and pray. I mean, it would seem to me, objectively, if I wasn't a Trump person and the prosecution later this week or next week brought in somebody from the IRS, and first of all, folks, there's a lot of different charges here. So he could be acquitted on some and convicted on some, and some could be a hung jury. So what I'm saying, to just get it all taken care of, I would bring an IRS agent in there, the head of the IRS. How much money did Paul Manafort pay in 2014, 15, or 16? It's going to say 000, and that's guilty right there of tax fraud. So that one, I think even the Trump people are going to have a hard time saying acquittal on that one. But the other, I think there's 11 or 12 different charges against him. He's going to be convicted of some of them, but certainly it's going to be tough to convict on all of them. But even if he's acquitted on one of them, I mean, it's bad news for Trump.
Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Hello to you, folks. You're listening to Tom Simon in Williston, North Dakota, on the right, and on the left coast, Fred Wallin in Westlake Village, California, on Trending Topics News Radio Live. We're talking right now about the Paul Manafort trial, not the Trump trial, Fred. I must remind you, Trump is not on trial here, and all these accusations, none of them have anything to do with Donald Trump or with the Trump organization or with the Trump campaign, or with the Trump presidency. However, the charges and the investigation were done by Robert Mueller, who has headed up the investigation into Russian involvement or lack thereof in the 2016 election.
I disagree with you. It's not totally. They can't use Trump's name, but that doesn't mean that in some way they can prove that the oligarchs why was Manafort being paid? He told Trump the 4 months that he worked for him, I'll work for free. The reason he said that, common sense would dictate, he's getting paid to get people to Trump. That's not, I don't think that's open to question. Nobody's going to work for free unless you're doing it for, making money on the side, just like Michael Cohen. So, the bottom line is you can say what you want, but this isn't, it's not going to convict Trump, but it's certainly going to lead in that direction if Manafort is convicted of some of these heavy crimes in this case. And again, folks, there's 11 or 12 different charges, so which ones he'll be the hung jury, who knows. But again, I'm going to say again, the one that would seem to me the simple one would be bring an IRS agent in there. How much money did he pay? He didn't pay taxes. That's tax fraud right there. So that's one guilty charge. As far as the other 11 or 10, we'll see what happens.
Mr. Gates, who was a longtime assistant and aide to Paul Manafort, a confidant, so to speak, is on the stand this afternoon, maybe on again on Monday. We don't know yet. However, according to tomorrow morning's New York Times, Gates testified today that he and Mr. Manafort held 15 foreign bank accounts that were not disclosed to the federal government. The New York Times goes on to say that Mr. Gates said the required financial filings were not submitted, quote, at Mr. Manafort's direction, end quote. Mr. Gates admitted to a wide variety of crimes, including bank fraud, tax fraud, money laundering, lying to federal authorities, lying in the court deposition, and stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars from Paul Manafort's accounts by falsely claiming expenses. Not exactly a Boy Scout testifying for the prosecution, Fred. And this is a problem for the prosecution. They've got this guy that they've given a sweetheart deal to him, Fred. Instead of facing 300 years in prison like Paul Manafort does for the very same alleged crimes, the maximum that Gates can get, the maximum he can get under this plea deal is 6 years. Now, if I'm a juror, I'm going to look at this, everything he says, with a jaundiced eye. I'm going to think the guy has got to be lying to save his own skin.
And the 4 witnesses last week are also lying, and the only one telling the truth is Manafort, and I'm sure there's going to be witnesses after Gates. They're all going to be lying to the prosecution, and and Manafort's the only one that's telling the truth. Well, you told me that you believe all 21 women who have accused Trump of sexual violations, you don't trust any of them. So based on those odds, I see your point, but based on mathematics, it doesn't make any sense. Again, the buck stops here. Harry Truman said it, and it's one of the truest statements any president has ever said, any businessman has ever said, any leader has ever said. The buck stops there. The guy on top has to take responsibility. You can't pass it down. You can't say Manafort didn't know, because he makes the final decisions. He signs most of the checks. He told his accountant, according last Thursday or Friday, where to hide the money. So what Gates is, Gates was a thief too. There's no question. Gates took the plea, but he wouldn't. Gates still would be a secondary person in this case versus the numero uno person, who would be Paul Manafort, because he's in charge.
According to the New York Times, in the testimony today, Mr. Gates was grim and sober-faced. He frequently looked down or straight ahead, but never looked at Mr. Manafort. Meanwhile, Mr. Manafort stared right at Mr. Gates. The outcome of the closely watched trial, now in its second week, could hinge on whether the jury believes the testimony from Mr. Gates, who has pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit fraud and lying to federal authorities and faces a prison term of up to 6 years. Fred, I just don't like, I really don't like a justice system that goes out and gives immunity to 5 witnesses in order to get one guy for stuff that he allegedly did before the Trump administration was in office or even campaigning. I don't like that. That doesn't sit right with me. I don't understand why you, a guy who doesn't like prosecution of these kinds of things anyway, would think that that's fair in our country to try somebody after you go and give 5 people immunity and give one guy a 6-year maximum cap sentence, even though if what he says he did is true, he deserves at least 200 or 300 years. Why would that seem fair to you in this country?
Perfectly fair, because he's not the boss. People speak against the boss because the boss makes the final decisions. If all these people probably knew that what they were doing was illegal, but they were told to do it by the boss. The boss has to take responsibility. And it happens every day as far as law is concerned, legal cases are concerned.
Let's look at some of the other allegations and some of the other information coming out of that trial today, folks. And we want you to know as much as possible so that you can decide for yourself. Do you believe Gates? Do you believe Manafort? Do you believe a little bit of this and a little bit of that? Do you think that Manafort should be found guilty? The New York Times in tomorrow's edition says that as Mr. Manafort's most trusted aide, Mr. Gates was privy to detailed information about Mr. Manafort's personal and business associates, including exactly how much he paid for his season sports tickets. The prosecutors alleged that Mr. Gates, with Mr. Manafort's blessing, repeatedly lied to Mr. Manafort's accountants about millions of dollars of income that Mr. Manafort held in the names of shell companies in Cyprus, Greece, and St. Vincent and the Granadas. They also claimed that Mr. Gates helped Mr. Manafort fraudulently obtain millions in bank loans in 2015 and 2016. One of Mr. Manafort's accountants testified that Mr. Gates demanded she send him profit and loss statements from Mr. Manafort's political consulting firm in PDF format, which could then be converted to a Word document and doctored. When she refused, he scolded, "Poor system." Another accountant was more compliant, accepting financial documents from Mr. Gates that Mr. Manafort used to obtain a bank loan, even though she testified that she believed the documents were fraudulent. Mr. Gates was quick to compliment her after she wrote a letter to the bank that cited the falsified documents despite her suspicions. "Paperwork is awesome," he wrote in one email to her. So they've tried to create a box here for Manafort in which it would seem obvious to the jury that Manafort was directing all of this through Gates, and Gates was doing nothing unless Manafort approved it. I got to tell you, Fred, I've run much, much smaller companies, and there's a lot that happened below me that I never knew was going on because I just didn't have the time to micromanage that way. I don't find it beyond belief that Paul Manafort, in his management style, could allow Gates and others to do the things they did without his knowledge.
Okay, so he made $60 million 1 year. You don't think he knew where he was sending the money? You don't think that every time he made the millions, he knew what bank account those dollars were in? He's the one that made the final decision. I mean, I think, you're giving him too much rope, that's all. And that's fine, because I'm telling you, he's not going to be convicted on all 11 or 12 charges. He's been convicted on the income tax one. I don't see any way out of that one. The other 10 or 11, who knows? I don't know how many he's going to be convicted on. Some of them are going to be on jury. He's not going to be acquitted on anything. That I'd be willing to bet on. I mean, at worst, the government's going to get a couple convictions and a lot of hung juries. But even a couple convictions really screw Trump badly because, again, one more time, folks, in 2016, the 4.5 months he worked for Trump, he told Trump he'd work for free. That's because he has the consulting firm. He can get people to Trump. It's very, very similar to what Michael Cohen was doing. He makes money on the side by getting people onto a table with Donald Trump or into a room with Donald Trump. That's what he did. And there's no question, in my mind, there's no question about it. And some of those people are going to know the truth. And again, on the other side, Trump said during the campaign he could kill somebody on Fifth Avenue and his supporters wouldn't care. He's 100% correct. 35 to 40% probably wouldn't care in this country. I wouldn't make it true that he didn't kill anybody, In this case, it wouldn't make it true that Manafort isn't guilty of sin. Manafort will be convicted of a few of the 12 charges. He'll be, and a few of them will certainly be hung, and then I don't think he'll be acquitted on any of them.
You're listening to the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm Tom Simon in Williston, North Dakota. He's Fred Wallin over there in Westlake Village, California. We're talking about the Paul Manafort case, but each week we take time to discuss the topics of the day, and from the right, from the left, from the center, so that you get the information you need to make the decisions that you need to make as to who's telling the truth, who's right and who's wrong in politics, in big business, in religion, in all the different aspects of your life. We'll discuss it, and we discuss sports as well. But staying with the Manafort case, Fred, really what the attorneys are trying to show here is that Gates stole millions of dollars from Manafort. This is what the defense wants the jury to believe, and now is blaming him, Manafort, for financial crimes that Gates actually committed. Now, according to the New York Times, Manafort's biggest mistake, the defense has told the jury, is that he trusted Mr. Gates to handle his finances because he was too busy running his political consulting firm. Before Mr. Gates was called, Mr. Manafort's defense team cross-examined Cynthia Laporta, an accountant who handled Mr. Manafort's tax returns. On Friday, Ms. Laporta testified that Mr. Gates gave her documents she believed were false. When Kevin Downing, one of Manafort's attorneys, asked why you did not call Mr. Manafort, she replied, I think in most instances it was clear that Mr. Manafort was aware of what was going on. So, again, the prosecution trying to get the jury to believe that even though Manafort may not have given any direct order to the accountants, that he knew what was happening, and so that his authority should be held accountable. I think it stinks, Fred, that we have a justice system where you can offer these people these kinds of sweetheart deals in exchange for their testimony and not believe that they're somehow telling a distorted truth.
So we're talking $60 million and the guy's not hands-on? It doesn't make any sense. You know that, and I know that. 15 different foreign bank accounts, and he doesn't know anything that's going on, not paying taxes. I mean, how could that possibly, how could not paying taxes possibly be put on any of the 5 witnesses that the prosecution has brought to the forefront so far? Explain that one. No, I'm serious.
Well, I would just
answer the question.
I would.
If you don't pay your taxes, does it go on your son? Does it go on your grandson? Does it go on your secretary? It goes on you. So I don't care if these people were given immunity or not given immunity. Just answer the one charge. If he didn't pay taxes for 3 years, or I don't know how many years the charges were for, if he didn't pay taxes those years, who's responsible?
Well, I got to tell you that if I'm making $60 million and I'm paying attorneys and tax accountants to certify the records that they are supplying the IRS, they're responsible. They're responsible, not me. I pay them to certify these things to the IRS.
What happened? You go to court. You can sue your attorney later, but it's still under Tom Simon's name or Fred Wallin's name if I don't pay taxes. It's not on my attorney. I mean, I can go after my attorney and I can say he made a mistake, but I'm the one that has to stand trial for not paying taxes. Then you go after your attorney, and maybe he's disbarred or whatever the case might be. It's still on Manafort to pay his taxes and make sure they're paid. He's got to be the one to sign the tax accountant can make out the forms and say you only owe $377,000. Look at what we worked out. But you have to sign it at the bottom and date it. The attorney doesn't sign it and date it. You sign it and date it. And if you didn't send them any money, then you got to pay the penalty. And so that's one charge that I don't know how the hell the Manafort defense is going to get him out of, and I'll stick to that.
Well, one way is first of all, if the jury doesn't buy what Rick Gates is saying, period, they can nullify anything that happens in that trial, and very well may. The fact of the matter is, the New York Times is correct in their morning edition tomorrow in saying that Rick Gates' testimony is the most important part of this trial. Whether the jury believes him or believes the defense that's going to where the life of Paul Manafort is going to hang in the balance of that believability of Rick Gates.
Well,
You got to believe that.
I don't agree with New York Times. I think that's he's the most important of the five witnesses. But if you're objective at all, and if you're on the jury, you got to also listen to what the other four people have said. And now there's going to be people that haven't been given immunity, people from the IRS and other people that the prosecution is going to bring forward. So even if you believe that both Manafort, okay, fine. Both Gates and Manafort are scumbags. That means you acquit one scumbag. That means you acquit Manafort. He's the one, again, that didn't pay taxes. So I don't know how the heck you can possibly acquit. You either pay your taxes or you don't pay your taxes. That's black and white. I mean, that's not even open to question. In my life, we've been in a situation where we've been audited, and twice we ended up with more money than we asked for. But what if it had gone the other way? That would have been on Fred. That wouldn't have been on my tax accountant. That would have been on me. It just happened that both times we had health issues, so I don't think they understood how much money we spent, so we ended up getting more money back than we, our accountant had asked for. But what if it had gone the other way? It wouldn't be on our accountant. It would be on me for not paying the full amount of taxes. I wouldn't go to jail for that one, but, I'd have to pay penalties. I'd pay tax interest penalties, things like that. In this case, we're talking millions and millions of dollars in foreign banks. His name's got to be on the bank account, or he can't draw $450,000 to remodel his house or whatever it is for a lawn, or $15,000 for the snake jacket or whatever it is, ostrich jacket. He's got to sign the check, sign the bank statement to get the money out. Nobody else can. So, I just don't get it.
Second week of the Paul Manafort trial, I say it's going to be a hung jury, maybe even not guilty, but certainly not a guilty verdict against Paul Manafort. Fred Wallin, you say what as we move on to another topic?
No, I'm saying that of the 12 charges, he's going to be convicted on anything to do with the tax fraud for sure. And then some of them are going to be hung. I don't think there'll be one that all 12 say acquittal. I'll stand on that. There's going to be, I think, quite a few that may end up in a hung jury, a couple convictions, and I don't know how many of those are directly tax charges, but those he's going to be convicted on, because even a Trump person who pays his taxes is not going to be happy when he hears that. Gates can't make that up. It's the IRS. So if tomorrow or the next day they bring up an IRS agent to say, we didn't pay taxes, that has absolutely nothing to do with Gates. That only has to do with Manafort. If Gates is a scumbag, that doesn't mean that Manafort can skate for not paying taxes. I think that's just common sense.
Let's talk sports. If you just tuned in to the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, I'm Tom Simon in Williston, North Dakota. Fred Wallin is in Westlake Village, California. Every week we come to you to talk about the topics of the day, both sports and news and politics. Right now, if you had told me a couple of years ago, Fred, that I would be talking to you on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network about Melania Trump and LeBron James in the same breath, I would say, what planet are you on? But evidently, LeBron James and Melania Trump are in the news together nowadays as Melania comes out and really supports LeBron James. You say what about that?
Well, that's why they sleep in different bedrooms. How many wives? What kind of relationship can you possibly have where a wife actually takes the other side in a key tirade that Trump goes on? And you don't think Trump screamed at her afterwards? I don't think she cares. I'm sure that she signed a big deal where they get divorced. She's got $150 million or whatever it is, so she's set for life. But folks, if you don't understand what we're talking about, LeBron James makes a lot of money. Okay, LeBron James gives back. LeBron James has kids, but he was born in Akron. LeBron James opened a school. Okay, any kid that wants to go to that school, and Akron is a town where it's a poor town. Any kid that wants to go to that school, he pays for it. If you can't walk to the school, I'll buy you a bike. I'll buy your books. I'll buy your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I'll get money for your parents so they can survive and feed you. So that's LeBron James. And there are people like Laura on Fox and Donald Trump who think that just continue dribbling the basketball. No. And one other thing. Any of these kids that graduate from this high school that LeBron's starting in Akron, Ohio, any kid that graduates gets free tuition to the University of Akron. There are very few people who have done that. Donald Trump hasn't done that. I haven't done that. Tom hasn't done that. I don't know how many people in the world have done something like this. It's costing him millions of dollars, and he doesn't care. Trump says Don Lemon is the stupidest man on earth, and like LeBron is the second stupidest man on earth. And it seems to me he's going after a lot of black athletes and a lot of black personalities. So that day, and B, I got to give Melania, Tom, credit beyond belief, unless the relationship is so, and it might be, the relationship is over anyways. So at this point, she's just going to, from now on, just speak her, whatever she has to say, and she's not going to even hold back. Because I don't know how many wives who would have supported the other side, because this is a key issue for him. It really is. I mean, it's like, he's making LeBron out, go back to play basketball, or as Laura Ingraham said, just keep dribbling. No, basketball players have minds. Just because you play basketball doesn't mean you can't think. And for him to say Don Lemon is, for him to say anybody is stupid or anybody low IQ from Donald Trump is the funniest thing on earth anyways. Think about it, folks. He said that he's got higher poll ratings than every Republican in history, including Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln got shot when? And the polls came out in 1931. But he's got higher poll ratings than Abraham Lincoln. He also said, this is all in the same breath, he said his 4.1 economic movement upward is the highest in 13 years. No, not quite. Obama had 5 above 4.1, and Obama's 8 years coming out of a recession. So everything this man says is either stupid or lying, but his wife usually doesn't back him up. Thank you, Melania, for backing him up, and thank you, Ivanka, for backing him up on the other thing about the kids, who some of them have been given drugs, tranquilizers, and things like that in detention. So Donald Trump has done nothing but hurt this country. And
cut it out, Fred. Cut it out. I let you go on for 5 minutes, and you didn't say, you don't even come up to take a breath. Come up and take a breath. Let the other side get in there for a second. You just keep going and going and going and going.
I believe in. It's something I believe in, and I think it's something that people out there, if they think about it, will believe in too.
Dateline, Washington, D.C. And by the way, Fred, it wasn't too long ago, a few years ago, that people were saying right after he left the presidency, she would be divorcing him. And we were talking about Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. That never happened. I don't think this is going to happen either. Dateline, Washington, D.C., Melania Trump issues statement in support of LeBron James after the president insults him. The Washington Post says, Fred, First Lady Melania Trump issued a statement Saturday in support of LeBron James after President Trump posted a late-night tweet attacking the basketball star. The president took to his favorite medium and attacked James' intelligence Friday night after CNN aired an interview in which the NBA star told anchor Don Lemon that he thought Trump was trying to, quote, divide the country by using sports as a wedge. LeBron James was just interviewed by the dumbest man on television, Don Lemon, Trump wrote. He made LeBron look smart, which isn't easy to do. I like Mike, said the tweet by Donald Trump. Trump had apparently watched the rebroadcast of the interview, which originally aired Monday, according to CNN. Lemon's questions mostly focused on James' time off the court, covering James' newly completed I Promise School in Akron, a public and nonprofit partnership designed to help undeserved kids in his Ohio town. James, a newly minted L.A. Laker, 3-time NBA Finals MVP, and double Olympic gold medalist, said the school opening made Monday perhaps the greatest day of his life. But Lemon also discussed James' political awakening driven by racial upheaval in the country and Trump's ongoing battle with Colin Kaepernick. So there's the basis of what happened. And then Melania came out and says this. It looks like LeBron James is working to do good things on behalf of our next generation, said Melania Trump's spokeswoman, Stephanie Grisham. And just as she always has, the First Lady encourages everyone to have an open dialogue about issues facing children today. I do not like this, Fred, one bit.
I love it. And Hillary never went after Bill. That would be the difference in this case. Hillary never went after Bill, even after Monica. So it's totally different. I mean, this is really strong stuff because Trump never likes to be contradicted. If you contradict him in your administration, you're not there long. So something's going on as far as the relationship is concerned. And I mean, I feel sorry. No matter how much money she made on this deal, I feel sorry for Melania having to look at this guy. But that's another story. But thank you, Melania, for standing up for what you believed in because it made no sense. Trump, I guarantee you, Trump never did anything close to that in his entire life. Trump is being, right now, charged in New York with his son Eric for stealing $1.7 million from the St. Jude's golf tournament. That Eric goes to St. Jude's and says, let's have a golf tournament. And you find out that the Trump people took $1.7 million that St. Jude's didn't know they were taking. So that's Trump on one side, and you've got LeBron James on the other, and it is black and white. One's a good guy and one's not. And you know, the history of Donald Trump, before we get out of here, is racism, just like his dad. There's nothing.
Oh, here you go again. Here you go with your craziness.
You're talking about
it doesn't take you long to go crazy, Fred. It doesn't take you long.
You got to talk about their background. You can't just say a one-time thing. But if it's a history of racism, the Central Park Five, he spent millions of dollars to convict these people, even after they were acquitted. Being fined in New York for not renting to black or Hispanic people in his apartments. That's Donald Trump. I mean, his dad, the song Woody Guthrie wrote, Beach Haven. Donald Trump's dad, Fred Trump, would not lease or rent houses, homes to black soldiers after World War II. Fred Trump said he was Swedish. Fred Trump didn't want to say he was German, of course, after World War II. That's the whole family. The whole family of bigots forever. So my point is, you have
Fred,
Tom, you have to go back.
Terribly unfair for you to go back to his father and to his mother and all these unsubstantiated claims. I'm not going to go back to your mother's past or your father's past and blame you for something. There you go, talking over me again. It's like Fred, stop with the talking over.
Fined in New York for not renting.
Fred,
in New York.
Fred, stop.
Yes or no?
Stop talking.
No,
Fred,
that's the question.
Stop talking over me. Stop talking over me.
To black people. Tell me
Fred,
more on that one, Tom.
Broadcasting 101, do not talk over your counterpart. Broadcasting 101.
Fined in New York for not renting to black people. Yay or nay? That's all. Tell me no. Then you'd be wrong.
I'm not going to step into your questions, Fred. The reality is you want to convict the president. You want to convict Fred, shut up.
Folks, look it up. Google. Do me a favor.
Shut up, Fred.
Folks, as we go out here, do me a favor. Google Donald Trump fined New York for not renting to black or Hispanic people. See how many times he's been fined. Let's see who is correct in this case, Tom or Fred, as far as this is concerned.
The reality is, Fred, that you have to learn in the future broadcasts to stop talking over me. I'm not going to talk over you. And there you go again. You cannot stand it.
Look up, bigot, racism, not renting to black people or Hispanic people in New York, Donald Trump. See how many times he's been fined. That's all. If he's been fined once, he's a racist. That's all. End of story. It's not open to discussion. If you don't rent to black people, you're a racist.
He is your president, and you're upset about it. I understand.
No, we have a racist president. That's fine. I don't care. We're stuck. He's not going to make 2020. 2020.
Here we go.
That's will run against Pence, but that is a guarantee. But I'm just trying to make the case that he seems to be going after black football players, black basketball players, black Congress people, low IQ, black. Like he's a genius. He's calling anybody else low IQ. That one is unbelievable. I'd like him to take an IQ test and see where he'd rank against the former presidents who are still alive, or against almost any congressperson or any senator or anybody in business. I mean, pure IQ test. For him to call somebody low IQ, like he has called some athletes, is beyond belief. They have a right to their opinion, Tom.
Is he smarter than you, Fred?
What?
Is he smarter than you?
I was a member of Mensa for 20 years, so I don't think he's higher than me. Okay, so you need a certain.
Right. Although he's made many billions of dollars more than you. Although he's beaten your candidate and every person that you would like to run for president, he's won.
I don't go around telling people that I was a member of Mensa. Okay, but the point is, but the point is, he calls other people low IQ. Anybody that has seen what he has said and done over 17 months, come on, give me a break. The tariffs? I mean, even his people know it's Republicans, conservatives, the worst idea on earth. But he's trying. He's doing this like he's a business person. It's not a business thing. It's a government thing where other people are involved. And now he has to steal $12 billion to make sure the soybean farmers are okay because they voted for him after Trump made the air of the tariffs. I mean, it's a circle here that never stops. It's beyond belief. I didn't want to get angry at him today, Tom, but I had to, because Melania, I love you.
Trending Topics News Radio live on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm Tom Simon in North Dakota, where the farmers here are very happy with the president, by the way, right about now. And the soybeans are growing and selling from North Dakota, and they're happy with their president. They voted for him 70 to 80% in North Dakota, and they're probably going to kick Heidi Heitkamp right out of the Senate come up this next election, so we'll see about that. He's Fred Wallin in Westlake Village, California. We're here with you every Monday on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network with Trending Topics News Radio Live. As we get out of here, Fred, your final thought.
Dodgers win 1 out of 3 from Houston, lose 2-1, 14-0, win 3-2, off today, play tomorrow. Arizona and the Dodgers tied at the top.
Are the Dodgers in trouble? Are the Dodgers in trouble?
No, I mean they're going to win. They're going to win the division.
Well, I agree with you. I think they're going to win the division, and I think they're going to win the World Series. But they have to go through some time when they lose a few games. They've lost a few games this weekend. Arizona, are they playing in Phoenix or are they playing in LA?
I don't know. All I know is that they've played most of their games already between one another. So, barring Kershaw injury, I think the Dodgers are the best team in the National League and maybe in baseball. And the addition of Dozier and Machado offensively have made a tremendous difference, because simultaneously Kemp has gone like 1 for 40 and Muncy has gone like 30 strikeouts in his last 40-something at bats. So they needed these two guys. They still need relief pitching help, but people change teams today, so you can still get relief help. Have to go through waivers. In the end, I think the Dodgers will win that division by 4 or 5 games.
Trending Topics News Radio Live. We will see you next week. Fred, bye-bye.
Hey, guys.